We are back on Department 2, contracts that meet the threshold for board approval of $1 million or more. Ms. Brotherton.
Christy Brotherton, Chief Procurement Officer. I have two contracts for your consideration today. The first is a continuing services agreement for generator maintenance and repair. This contract has a maximum not to exceed value of $1,500,000 with a maximum not to exceed term of 5 years. Staff is recommending that the contract be awarded to the two highest scoring firms, which is 360 Energy Solutions and Genset Services, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. And the next contract is a continuing services agreement for food services items, and cleaning supplies. This contract has a maximum not to exceed value of $5 million with a maximum not to exceed term of 5 years. And staff is recommending that the board award the contract to the two lowest responsive and responsible bidders, which is Allure Hospitality Suppliers and Cisco Southeast Florida, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute all documents related to this request. And that concludes this item.
Any questions for Ms. Brotherton?
I'll move staff's recommendation and for approval.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you. On to Department 3, which is state and federal legislative programs. Good afternoon.
All righty.
Commissioner Capps, is that a light?
No, hold.
Stake? Thank you.
Start with the state program. So the purpose, I'm Sarah Powers, Legislative Coordinator, for the record. The purpose of the presentation today is to go over our state and legislative federal, or state and federal legislative programs. These documents, I've been handed them. They've come down over the years. This is our platform that we use in Tallahassee and DC. It's kind of the expressed consent of the board to let us lobby on issues that reoccur every session and every year in DC. So like I said, we provide these to our delegation members, our lobbyists, and that gives them kind of a guide to 2025 priorities. And we'll start with the state. Table of contents, nice new picture. So of course, our local bill request was approved by the delegation last week. So that bill should be getting filed any day now, and working that through committee weeks and session. Some of our priorities, of course, we've combed through and clean this up, some of this language up, but of course, comprehensive Everglades restoration plan, conservation land acquisition, septic to sewer conversion, biosolids, coral reef funding, and resilient coastlines programs. These are reoccurring programs. And some new, FWC is asking for an increase this year in their budget for the reef program, which would then in turn help us out. The National Estuary Program and the Loxahatchee River Preservation Initiative continue to be priorities. Opposing unfunded mandates and supporting home rule. Water quality and natural resources, this is kind of our miscellaneous water things that we see reoccurring every year at the state level. And some statements on human services and public safety, as well as economic growth and tourism. NERISA revisits this every year and helps us kind of edit where Visit Florida is and bed taxes and all of that. Infrastructure, recreation, and transportation. At the end, I'll kind of go through a list of some things that we've identified that we do need to add. That includes some bright line language in the, or rail language in the state program as well as the federal. So there's that last line, some test language that we've put in there as in the draft version. We can tweak it. And then
Before you leave this, the
Yeah.
state, I'm on page 7. which under biosolids, and the first sentence says support land acquisition for biosolids. Let's take that out.
Yep. So we've come up with some draft language, support, so take that out, support funding for capital projects, oh wait, no, that's Brightline, sorry. Support alternatives to the land application of biosolids, excess nutrients from land application of human waste from wastewater treatment, effluent, termed biosolids reach surface waters and continue to increase the occurrence of harmful algal blooms.
Okay, good.
And then on to federal. So this document, again, has remained mostly unchanged as our priorities have remained very similar over the years. So of course, again, SERP, Comprehensive Everglades Restoration Plan, is in there. Passing a WERDA Act is always important every 2 years. IRL South Phase 2, when we were up in DC, that was one of the points we were already advocating on. Beach restoration, inlet management, again, a reoccurring federal funds. The National Estuary Program remains a priority. Back to the reefs, NOAA's Reef Act, as well as working with FWC at the state level. But another big one, conservation of land acquisition, with light of our recent sales tax passage, making sure that that is included in there. And that's all I have. Just bring it back to here. So some things that we've identified that we would like to add to the state program. We'd like to add support for the Rural and Family Lands Protection Program. I know Commissioner Heatherington brought it up earlier. That was used to purchase bull hammock. So obviously we would like to include that into somewhere right here in the state program. And also, we could draft a letter of support or a letter thanking the governor and Wilton Simpson for
Bull hammock.
Bull hammock, yeah, for that purchase. And so, continuing supporting us here in Martin County. I don't know if that needs to be a separate motion, but.
No, if we got direction, we will
Okay,
letter for the chair.
perfect. We'd like to add support for SRF funding, something that we're kind of missing out on at the state and federal level. So just making sure we add that into both of our programs, that we support funding of that. And
And that's the state revolving
Sorry.
fund, which we use in our assessments to help lower the cost to our citizens and to our projects.
so that's one. Changing, we talked about changing that language of biosolids to make it make sense. And again, adding Brightline to the state and federal program. It does, your direction, we don't have to have it say Brightline. It could say, it says rail right now, but we can make that more specific. And we've already applied for federal grants. I don't know that there's any state dollars, but if it comes up, at least we have it in there. And then adding a line item supporting SHIP emergency funding for post-disaster recovery.
And so on the rail, the projects that are obviously very important to us is the station is one piece of it. The other is the replacing of the railroad bridge, which we've supported significantly. And if in the future, if there's anything related to noise abatement or things like that, we might include in kind of our priority. But certainly the trestle replacement is still a critical support, and of course our station. So those are what we plan to advocate on the federal and state side. It's principally been federal at this point in time, but there are times when the DOT also comes into play. The state DOT.
Any other additions?
That's all I have on my list, and, if there's anything you want me to add from there, we're more than happy to listen and add those in.
I heard that we did get another appropriation for the railroad bridge.
So there was a couple of appropriations, and I think currently the rail is working with the Florida Inland Navigation District as a local sponsor for part of it as well. And so we would be supporting those other local sponsors in the activities.
Okay, and also the Orlando Brightline Station was completely funded by the state. Who funded it? FDOT, or was it a legislative appropriation, or it was a big appropriation and it was all the state?
Yes, I'm not 100% sure on that. I don't know if you.
No, I don't have that off the top, but we'll find out, Commissioner.
Look into it. If there's money available, let's find it. And lastly, what's up with the farm bill?
John, you're on,
I
buddy.
was gonna say, I'll turn that over to
I mean,
John. Give
I
us
know
an
the
update.
answer, but
John Mayle, Environmental Resource Administrator for Martin County. Just at the end of the Congress, they renewed it. They put a CR in for a year, so they have until, I think, September, October before they need to start getting something put together. I'm sure committees will be working on the draft, but right now they're just wholly focused on the budget resolution and the tax bill that's due up in April. And well, actually, they're still focused on restructuring, but they've just in the last couple days kind of created that timeline for themselves. So up until May, it'll all be budget, tax, and then an energy bill that has to go through. So probably July, they'll start working
Yeah.
on Farm Bill, hopefully to pass something by the end of the year.
because we used agriculture money to buy Alapata, and we would love to be able to avail ourselves to that funding once again, and just restrict it to governments for CERT projects.
I know we have our lobbyists on that for sure.
Okay, good. Commissioner Capps?
Yes, and speaking with our county administrator, Don Donaldson, yesterday, he told me of an interesting thing that happened in Washington when, I guess, Commissioner Hurd and Don were up there, and it had to do with,
Commissioner Hurd and
yeah.
and John and Sarah.
I thought I'd like to hear the story told again. It had to do with the Northern Everglades component in the WRDA bill and how it almost was not in the WRDA bill, but you got it back in at the last minute.
It is. I thought it was noteworthy because I did mention it at one of your new meetings, but I'm sure it kind of flew through the air as to just it was significant, and I thought it was just important to reiterate what Little Martin County was able to do, and really the three that were up there, and Commissioner Hurd and John, and really the collaboration with a multitude of congressmen and senators, and I think Lois Frankel helped from down south, and Senator Scott was a big instrumental in it, and so, you know, I'm telling it secondhand, and I just knew it was an amazing story from my own personal experience up there. So, John, I'll let you tell the story. It's a much, you know.
So I'll start with some context. You know, we take these trips to Tallahassee and to D.C. We always create agendas. We have our bullet points and talking papers, things we want to advance. Sometimes we don't have a super germane, apropos argument, but I don't think I've ever made a trip where something didn't come up that made it very worthwhile. So that was the case for this one for certain. So we got up on our first morning. We were briefing on our meetings for the day. And I got a text from the executive director of South Florida Water Management District, Drew Bartlett, saying, hey, WRDA dropped last night, which means that the committee staff released the WRDA bill that was going to go to the floor. And this is at the end of, it only has a week left, right? So this is at the very tail end. It was, as often the case, it was put off to the very end. And it's a several hundred-page document. Staff were reviewing it, and they did not see the Lake Okeechobee Component A Reservoir Project included in the WRDA, which authorizes that project to become part of SERP. It would make it eligible for funding, and it would also pave the way for the state to make its investment in it. It was a huge problem that it wouldn't be in WRDA. It really probably would have killed the project. It's a $2 billion reservoir that stores water north of the lake. It also allows that water to move back from the lake to this reservoir. You can send it east and west from there through the Kissimmee River outlets to provide water supply for ag. And anybody downstream of that reservoir would be a beneficiary of that stored water, including the St. Lucie River, which would be spared harmful discharges if that reservoir was built. So definitely something we supported. When we talk to our, we have kind of elder states figures in our lobbying team up there. They said, well, we'll shoot for 26. And And Drew's like, no, we can't. We have to do this now. And so everybody kind of, took on their role and started making phone calls, figuring out where it was stalled out, and then putting in place the calls and the letters and the right delegates to get it moving from place to place. And within 24 hours, it went from kind of stale at the White House Office of Management and Budget. They didn't have feel any pressure to get it done before the end of the year. And statutorily, they didn't have that pressure, to being in just the steps it had to go through. OMB had to send it to the headquarters for USACE, which is the Corps of Engineers. Chief of Engineers had to review it, sign it, send it on to the committee staff that puts together the WRDA bill. They had to amend the WRDA bill that they had ready for a vote. And then the leadership on the House and Senate side had to accept the amended version. And then by the weekend, it was already done. And they had later that week approved by both floors, the new version, and then the White House signed it into law, shortly after the new year. So really saved a couple $2 billion project that benefits all of South Florida. There was several NGOs that were also there for the task force meeting that we regularly attend, and but when Drew Bartlett was reporting this out to his governing board in January, a couple weeks ago. Us, the Everglades Foundation, and the Bonefish and Tarpon Trust, which is a huge lobbying organization for water quality in South Florida, were mentioned specifically for our role in that. Sometimes we're just making people aware of a problem. That's often the case. I know last year in Tallahassee we had a similar thing where there was just something that wasn't right, and we just had to tell people. And
Well, I do appreciate having a smart and humble team, but you guys kind of did an amazing thing. So that's why I had to brag about it, so anyway.
Thank you.
Any other questions for me?
All right,
Any other additions or changes that need to be made?
Looks good. Do you want a motion to,
With the amended changes.
I'll make a motion for staff's recommendation of approval with the amended language added by Ms. Powers.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Powers, thank you so much.
Hey, you're going to have to go up to Tallahassee soon. There's a
Yeah.
special session.
Yeah. If it happens.
Next is Department 4, permission to use construction manager at risk, CMAR delivery method for the Southeast Dixie Highway Stormwater and Streetscape Project.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Susan Cora's Office of Community Development. And I just want to say, I think I might deserve a little slack because I have to follow John Mayle, and that's really not fair. I don't have a story like that. Anyway, the Southeast Dixie Highway Stormwater and Streetscape Project was approved as a capital project in our fiscal year 25 CIP for the agency. This is a large, multi-phased project that includes stormwater and drainage work from Southeast Bridge Road to Southeast Saturn Street on Dixie Highway, includes Post Office Alley and all of the side streets, of which there are 7. The updated streetscape design will allow for wider sidewalks, increased landscaping, parking along side streets. We plan to underground utilities, and this is going to allow for easier and more effective redevelopment of the vacant parcels and the underdeveloped properties that are there now. I'll say a little bit about CMAR if you'd like to hear that.
Sure.
And why this project works for that method. Okay. A multi-phase construction project on these streets is perfectly suited for the CMAR process. The construction manager will provide plan and phasing review comments during the design phase of the project instead of providing change orders that typically develop using the design bid build process. So the construction manager comes in at the beginning or close to the beginning. On this project, we have a conceptual plan already, so they would start with the design phase of the project and move along. And what that does is it provides value engineering kind of at the beginning of the project instead of waiting until further in the process. This method provides a project schedule and detailed cost estimates earlier in the process, which assists the agency in planning our funding accordingly and decreasing construction fatigue for the residents and businesses in the construction area. It also allows us to procure long lead times in advance to reduce construction delays and increase cost. The early plan review, logistics, and coordination of this work by a construction manager using the CMAR process, we believe will be crucial to the success of this process. So I am here, according to the purchasing manual, to ask for permission to move ahead.
Questions for Ms. Corres? Comments? Commissioner Capps?
Move approval.
This looks like a great project.
Yeah.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Next is Department 5, a presentation on the Witham Field Strategic Business Plan Update. Mr. McBean. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. So this agenda item is a presentation on the Strategic Witham Field Business Plan Update. So this business plan update is initially updating the 2010 airport business plan, which is obsolete in today's business environment for the airport. The 2010 business plan was published after Florida Department of Transportation published their guidelines for airport business plan, and the 2010 business plan is also heavily based on the impacts of 9/11 on the aviation industry as a whole. So this business plan is going to bring the airport's business environment to where it needs to be in this update. In addition to that, there's going to be a peer airport benchmarking where the airport's going to compare itself business-wise to other airports in the region, and a financial review and assessment, including a marketing plan as well. So the four main pieces of the business plan update is a stakeholder engagement. This is where we go out to internal and external stakeholders to kind of get their opinions on the airport business plan and the airport as a business environment as a whole. In addition to that, we're going to do the analysis and an assessment. That's where we look at the financials of the airport, our grant dollars, the self-sufficiency status of the airport, and see if there's any changes that we could make there. There's going to be the business plan development. That's the actual writing of the business plan document. And in addition to that is the implementation program. This is where we will create an actual roadmap for the business plan to take the airport from A to B if that's necessary, if that's the direction that the board decides to go in. This slide is just a brief timeline for the airport business plan update. As you can see right now, we're in the internal and external assessment, as well as a stakeholder engagement workshop. This is just a public kickoff presentation on the business plan. The commission will have an opportunity to provide more comments during additional workshop sessions. And just to add more to the business plan is being funded by FDOT and the Airport Enterprise Fund. It's about $250,000. 20% of that is coming from the airport, and the rest of that is coming from 20% of that is $50,000, and the rest of that is coming from the Florida Department of Transportation. I'm here to answer any questions that you might have on the business plan update.
Questions on the airport business plan?
We had,
Vargas.
yes, thank you. We had spoken about talking with other businesses besides Daher Aerospace. I know there are number of flying schools there to be able to increase the revenue. Have you been able to look into that?
Not just yet, Commissioner, and we will look into that as we progress through the business plan.
And if you could please get back with us.
Yes, Commissioner.
On that, I appreciate that.
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Mr. Campy?
Motion to accept the presentation as presented. Plan.
The recommendation is to hear the presentation.
That's it?
Yeah.
I've heard it.
Thank you, Mr. McBean.
Thank you.
Stay where you are. And you're joined by Mr. Poprowski. This is approval of commercial lease with Daher Aerospace, Inc.
Yes, Commissioner. So we have Mr. Sebastian Poprowski here, the airport's counsel. This agenda item includes the approval of the commercial lease between Daher Aerospace and the Martin County Board of County Commission. As some of you may know, that Daher was a successful respondent to a 2024 RFP. Daher intends to make a foreign direct investment of about $30 million initially, which will increase to $80 million over time. The intention of Daher is to relocate their final assembly lines for the TBM and the Kodiak model aircraft here in Martin County. The benefit of that is the retention of 400 jobs that's existing at Daher, as well as adding 180 jobs for the final assembly line production process at Daher. In addition to that, the county will also benefit from tangible personal property taxes. As you know, this item has been delayed twice due to a review process with the FAA, but at this time, we're comfortable moving forward with the item, and the recommendation is that the Board of County Commission approves the lease with Daher. Any questions, I'll be willing to answer those.
Mr. Campy?
Thank you. Brief presentation. Several of us had the privilege of being at the opening when the Daher family and the folks from France came to announce and to take over that site. And it was a remarkable day filled with a lot of big plans. As you can imagine, a lot of businesses that are coming to town, they're excited. They talk about, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and they did it. They lived up to the very lofty expectations that the community had for them. They are a remarkable company that brings, as you had mentioned, and then the Business Development Board was here this morning to talk about indirect and direct financial benefit, but they are also great stewards of the community. They're very involved in all sorts of educational programs, chamber programs. I couldn't have asked for a better partner to come to Martin County. For them to now see an opportunity to increase their operations here is a complete win for us. As you mentioned, they have 400 employees currently, and they're going to look to bring in, another 180. 180. Now, some communities would look and say, well, 400, 500, 600 employees, that's not such a big number. In Martin County, that's a tremendous number. You can, for argument's sake, multiply it by 10, and where you would see things like that happening further south in Miami and Fort Lauderdale. They also bring a benefit to the airport without additional takeoffs and landings.
That's correct.
And so it's exactly what it should be. I'm thrilled that they chose Martin County because I'm sure they could have gone wherever they wanted. And I'm honored to make the motion to accept their changes in the lease.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Commissioner Hetherington?
Briefly, I would just add on to that. That's exactly the aviation and marine industry. These kind of businesses are exactly the niche kind of business, commercial businesses that Martin County wants, and that will help us into the future take the burden off of residential taxpayers. So I would gladly second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Would anyone from the public like to address us? Anyone from Daher would like to speak to us? Afternoon.
Afternoon. Tyson Waters from the law firm of Fox McCluskey here on behalf of Daher. I just think it's been wonderful working with staff. A lot of hard work has come into this lease, and there's a lot of excitement about what this is going to mean for both the airport and Martin County, and we thank you for this opportunity. And again, we have some representatives here if you have any questions for them. But thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Yes, Commissioner Capps.
Initially, we talked about a $30 million investment.
Yes, Commissioner. That was what was
And-
outlined in the RFP.
I suppose a lot of that is in the buildings that will be replaced.
That is in the demolishing and the construction of the new final assembly line buildings, Commissioner, yes.
And those buildings won't be owned by the county, they're built by someone else, and we're going to be the owner of them.
Yes, Commissioner.
Right, and that's interesting. And then the old buildings that are being replaced are in poor condition, I
Yes,
believe.
yes, Commissioner. I think they were there since just after World War II. They served Grumman.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? If not, there's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Brings us to the end of our meeting. We have time for commissioner comments. Commissioner Vargas.
Okay, let me grab my notes here. Yeah, I really would like to have a motion consider for any future projects or development on ordinance addressing sale and storage of petroleum products, that they must be at least 500 feet away from residential areas. That did come up last meeting in December. And I've had quite a few people sending phone calls, sending emails, and requesting that we consider to have an alternate on the BOCC meetings, as somebody mentioned this morning, later in the day, starting later in the day. I mean, a lot of folks have to work, and they really want to be participant, they really want to be engaged, but they just can't do it financially. So I'd really appreciate that. Also, I've had a number of concerns reach out to us about signs on major thoroughfares throughout Martin County. And of course, some people say, well, they're only lifting my signs, not the others. I know how that feeling is. I really do. It's still fresh. But I assure them we're equal opportunity sign snatchers in this county. If there's any way that we might have maybe the sweep, like every 2 days with the department that handles that, at least it won't look as if, well, you know, the junk guy's sign is still there a week later, but my sign for roofing is still, or my puppy sign, or, you know, whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? They must have some sort of schedule or something there. I don't know, but we're getting these phone calls, so I really need some help here, you know, you know what I mean?
We banned those signs. We call them snipe signs. We banned them one year when I was running for office, which I thought was wonderful because I consider them litter. And I also have to put them up myself, which I also don't like. And I thought that was really terrific, just
weren't allowed.
banning them altogether.
Remember, we weren't, if I remember correctly, I agree with you, what you said. The signs are a lot, not necessary even in campaigns. If nobody did it, would be terrific. But I thought there was a First Amendment kind of state statute or something. We were not allowed to stop those signs from happening.
I think Sarah Woods, County Attorney, there were two issues. There was the free speech, First Amendment issue, but that is not the case within our right-of-ways, because that's considered, so there were two different issues. So I'm not sure, Commissioner Hurt, how long ago that was, so it may have, I remember we had to amend our sign regulations to comport with the Supreme Court decision, but we still pick up signs that are on county property.
Right, and there are plenty of them, in addition to those that are hanging on, I assume, county-owned fencing. You know which ones I'm talking about, they're all over. And the events have already passed, so they're starting to get weathered. I mean, you know, if they're out there and they got their truck,
So our code enforcement folks, obviously, we can arrange their priorities. There, you know, we don't have a staff. They do not go out there every day. We're usually generally our code compliance is more complaint driven than on routine. Although we do go through the CRAs on specific times based upon request. But I'll get with our building official and talk and get back to you on if we want to do a schedule around the whole county on whether, you know, we can accommodate that on a routine basis, or how frequently we can do it without interfering with our inspection schedule.
right. Well, I know that they do sweeps during campaigns daily. I know that for a fact.
You know, the campaigns are always a difficult time, and we also have at times signs that disappear that our staff were not involved. And, you know, we would always take them to the building department and put them back by, you know, the dumpster. And then I know Mr. Overdorf, I can use his name because we talked several times about his signs disappearing, and then he couldn't find them at the dumpster because we don't know who was taking the sign. So it is, you know, the campaign season has its own sensitivities that we're aware of, and we will try endeavor to do a more accurate and professional job.
That's fine, but I appreciate, again, those signs that have been there forever, you know, I mean.
Sure. No,
We just want to keep Martin county different
Absolutely.
than other places. So whatever, they were great. And they came out to see me when I was standing in the dump trying to find my signs. They were great. They even helped me pull some out, you
Good.
know? I'm just saying, but let's just clean up. So, thank
FDOT
you.
also maintains, they do their state roads, FDOT, and they used to put the signs in a big pile by the Turnpike entrance in Palm City, but in the last year or so, they take them all to Fort Pierce.
You're not supposed to put them in the right of way anyway.
Anywhere, yeah, but, you know, when it's campaign season, Commissioner Vargas is not wrong, they're all over the place, and the ones that are, events that are months after they happen, their signs are still up, but,
There's always enthusiastic supporters who find a
yeah.
place to put them.
That's true, that's true. All right, so about the motion, about the benzene.
Okay, so the question is the zoning change. It did come up when we had the item, and so staff can bring an item back on that zoning change. We will bring, you know, there are, we'll have to prepare an impact on what that would do to the existing or properties that are currently able to have gas stations, and with the Bert Harris and other things, it may be. We'll just determine what the impacts can be and how successful we can be at it. So we'll bring that back to you. And I'll get with growth management on when that can be done. So if that's a priority of the board, we can get it done.
I'm interested in that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Don't forget about the folks that want to participate too.
That's a 5 thing.
Yeah, I was on the board when there was pressure to have night meetings, and there was pressure to have meetings in all the districts. And so we're public servants, and we're obedient, and so we did all those things. We had night meetings, we had meetings in every district, and by about the 6th or so meeting, there were absolutely no people in attendance. We were the only ones there, and it cost a whole lot of money to take this show on the road.
Okay, so that was in the district. What about here?
We did it everywhere. We did it at the.
The outcome here.
Nobody showed up. It was a failure. And we spent a lot of money finding out that it was not going to work for us.
Yeah, it's amazing. The city of Stewart has it 4 o'clock on, so, and they have a full house.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
I'm not, you're next, I'll wait till my
go
turn.
ahead.
Yeah, one thing I think that's different about the county is because we have 160,000 residents, when a controversial issue comes up, the number of people that can end up coming here to speak at public, you know, at times can be 3 hours of that, right? Public speaking. So I don't think it serves anyone's interest to have meetings going late into the night because people end up leaving because they're tired. And the idea is to try to get more people there, but it's not working because people actually leave because they're exhausted. And I think that's probably the case in the past when this was tried in the past. Am I correct?
Aren't the budget hearings in the evening?
5 o'clock.
Well, the final approvals are at 5 o'clock,
Statute.
and no one shows up for those either.
Right, statutorily prescribed?
Yes.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. I'm glad that topic came up. I obviously received the same emails, and I thought about what they do in other municipalities. I'm not opposed. I remember what Commissioner Hurd saying. A lot of folks say, well, you know, we need to have these meetings at night so we can attend, but then they don't. But that being said, that was a while ago, and I would not be opposed to at least doing a recap of what the municipalities, you know, the counties in the, you know, Palm Beach, Okeechobee, St. Lucie, Indian River. Let's see what the rest are doing, how they're doing it. I know that when I was the chair, we did when Indiantown was still part of the county, I did take the show on the road, and we went out to Indiantown, and for a daytime appointment, commission meeting there, and actually, other than our staff and the beautiful kids from the Hope Rural School who sang, there were no other residents there. I'm not opposed to having a nighttime beta test to see if having it in the evening would work. I do remember that when we started at 9 o'clock in the morning, back in the days when we met 3 times a month, we were here sometimes until 11 o'clock at night. We had, and Commissioner Capps is not wrong, if you get here at 6 o'clock at night, even with the City of Stewart meetings, the biggest complaint I hear, and I watch their meetings, they had a couple of meetings that went to like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And so remember, if you're having your staff, throughout the course of our meetings, we have staff that are participating through the day. If they're working their entire day and then they're working into 10 or 11 o'clock at night, that has to be factored in. So I'm not opposed to giving it a try to see, but it really, you can't say, okay, you know, the second meeting in February we'll do it, because if the public's trying to prove a point, they'll come. But what if on that agenda day, there's not really anything of consequence that would bring out a crowd? But I agree, as Commissioner Hurd said, we are public servants. If the public is requesting that we try a nighttime meeting, I'm not opposed to that. To see if it'll work or not, but I don't know how you would verify a success of a nighttime meeting, because if the agenda didn't have anything of consequence, or the opposite, if people, 100 people showed up just to prove a point, I don't know. That's why I'd like to see what the other community, I think St. Lucie County meets in the evenings.
They do.
Yeah, so I'd like to know, maybe our staff can speak to them and find out what's the logistics of that?
Yeah, I know what they do is they have a workshop in the morning to go through all the lengthy discussions to try to abbreviate the night, because otherwise your hearings would go for a long time. So there are some different strategies, but we can certainly.
LPA meets at night,
We can certainly come back with a report on how other people are doing it. It all,
Well, I want our public to understand that we hear them if they're making suggestions, recommendations, or complaints, that we hear them. We don't just be like, okay, whatever. So we're asking our staff to review that and see what's the feasibility of it.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I would just say in that feasibility to bring back what that means for staff time, additional full-time employees, overtime, a fiscal analysis. I wasn't here when you met at night, but I can imagine that would be very expensive, having staff do their job during the day, be here at night. I personally don't care what time of day we meet, but I would like to take all that into consideration, because if we're going to need to hire new FTEs and overtime and things like that, that should be a consideration.
Wonder if we could also consider, when looking at other jurisdictions, like how active the residents are in county government affairs. It seems to me like we have a very active citizenry, and that's a wonderful thing. That's why we're such an awesome county. But there are a lot of people that take interest in county government here, and a lot of people that come and speak, and they like to have their time. And I kind of wonder if it's an unusual level of participation. And maybe some of these other local governments don't have as many people who want to participate as we do. And that might mean that our meetings are going to be going very late into the evening on a regular basis. So that would be my concern. And the wear and tear on the staff, going till 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. Because, look at this meeting today. This is a relatively brief meeting, and it's 2:15, and, we've been here since 9 o'clock. And, right, that's true, but this is a short meeting. The last one was till 5:30, right? So.
Yeah, I understand about the financial aspect of having employees here and also keeping them here, paying them overtime. I don't know if their schedule can shift. So if you're working the meeting, and I may have asked Mr. Donaldson about this before, can they shift to a later time, like you're on a second shift for this particular day, this particular meeting? I don't know. Just trying to find different ways to be able to say, hey, we heard you. and then get the word out. We are going to have the meeting on such and such a date at this time beginning. Do you know what I'm saying? And also, is it possible if you do have quite a lengthy agenda and there's some items that really don't need to be tackled, could they be moved off and pushed off to the following? Do you know what I'm saying?
So
Couple questions there, I know.
so in terms of, the policy of the board, if you want to have meetings at night, we will adapt. We will find a way to make it happen in terms of how we schedule folks and, what you do with, some of us are salaried employees, and it doesn't matter whether, so I think it would be more about the efficiency of your operations, really about you all being able to make good decisions is what's most important. So that first answer is if we will make it happen. So whether time of day, however many hours it's been, the others have said, I do routinely remember when we were first adopting our land development regulations, a midnight meeting was a regular occurrence. And that was from 9 to midnight for many times. And so shifting things around when county government gets busy and you have a lot of projects, especially on the regulatory side, that have essentially statutory requirements, there are times when we can't push them off. Or you have many meetings stacked up where pushing them off just makes the next meeting even busier. So I think that's certainly possible, but it generally what we wind up pushing off is your own internal items, which would be a parks discussion or something like that, to deal with the required items, which often take the most time, public hearings and the like. So in terms of managing the actual agenda, there are some things we have control of, but there are a number of things that come before you that are just a consequence of property owners and others, contracts or with the hair or others that just they have timelines and we don't have a choice. So, in answering your question, the first is that, yes, we can accommodate a night meeting. We've done it in the past, and we can do it in the future. I think the suggestion of looking around and how others are doing it, we can do that.
Well, Florida Association of Counties, and see how the other counties do it.
But, and whether or not it was, how the strategy of how we connect with our citizens is always evolving and trying to adapt. And I think that's, we're open to the will of the board.
How do you get the word out?
So today you talk about how do you get the word out, and of course that I think is just an overall challenge with any entity today, and that is, the newspaper is not what people are going to anymore, even online subscription services, and so you're challenged with. One, it's all demographic based on, a boomer like myself, you may still be able to get by newspaper, but otherwise, is it Facebook? And then,
Facebook is old.
Yes, I'm moving down the line, so give me a chance. So anyway, so your challenge is how do you get the word out? Because even in our projects that we have in a neighborhood of Golden Gate, if you remember, we had various town meetings, we have advertisements, all these things, and then when we go under construction, we have people right on the road who come in and say, I never knew about this. And so getting the word out, I think, is ultimately all of our challenge, but social media is and all of those avenues of electronics are how you're trying to do it. We have a great media group, but they don't always reach new customers. And, you have those social or our own platforms, our own website, which we're always trying to change, and our staff do a good job of it. But, once people lock into their media, they're sort of in their own echo chamber. And so I don't have a good answer for you other than describing the frustration we have on anything that we have, which is how do you reach the public with whether we're having a meeting or we're trying to discuss a project. And so quite honestly, part of what we rely on is you all, talking to your friends and neighbors, us going out and meeting with interest groups, like we had, the hippie group as an example. Sometimes they have meetings, and so, or HOAs. So staff meeting with the public, using social media, all those platforms is how you get the message out. But when you change the structure of a meeting like this, we would do all we could to, notice to the newspaper, notice to, try to get some television coverage if you could, and just hope people get it. That's a, I know that's not the answer you probably wanted to hear, but that's the reality we live in. Is how any government today, and Florida Associated County, everybody talks about is how do you get people engaged with what you're trying to achieve. Now, I will say that Commissioner Capps is correct. I've always found Martin County always has some citizens that are engaged. So I don't think we'll always have somebody here, but maybe not always everybody we would like.
Right, that would fall along the 20% rule, which is, in every organization. But what about the database for the registered voters? I mean, couldn't we, people have emails and just do a blast out there, and don't discount Facebook. That is very effective, I can tell you that.
Oh, no, I like it. I was just busting his chops.
Yeah, no, leave him alone. Facebook is good. It's good.
No, we use that. I mean, it's sort of, we have, but in terms of, mailings and things like that are expensive, and getting access to mailing email lists, blasts, those types of things are, what the tax collector has and other things is, we do mailings on occasion. Those are expensive.
I'm talking about, social media.
Right.
You have their, email, or, you put it out there somehow. I guess that's a Laura question.
Yes, that's a Laura
It's a Laura
question.
question, okay. Well, she'd be the gal, and I'm going to a tech conference, so I'm going to ask that question.
Good,
Let me know if there are any other questions on tech related.
thanks.
Commissioner Capps?
Yeah, on the issue of evening meetings, I think we ought to look at the start time and end time of the meetings in the last couple of years and then average it out. And I think you're going to find that the average meeting was at least 5 hours, maybe 6 or 7. Does that sound about right to you if you had to gut check that? 6, 7 hours, 8 hours? And ask yourself, how are you going to compress an 8-hour meeting into a 3-hour evening so that people get home at a reasonable hour? And it seems to me like that would lead to a feeling of being rushed. Everybody's rushed. I would love to make some comments, have some more explanation on an issue, but we're in a hurry, so we won't be able to say anything. Let's just have a motion, a second, quickly approve it, boom, we're out of here. I mean, you're going to feel really rushed when you're trying to compress a 7-hour meeting into 3 hours. There's just no way to do it, I don't think. So that's my, and then when it comes to public speakers, some people might say, well, let's cut down on the number of public speakers, cut it down to 1 or 2 minutes. That, I think people have a right under Florida statutes to speak at public meetings, and you cannot cut them out. If there's 3 hours of public comment, it's happening, whether you like it or not. Even if the meeting starts at 6 o'clock, and you can't get to business until 9:30 because you've had 3.5 hours of public comment. I don't see it being practical.
That's the truest form of public participation, is the public comment. I'm not interested in, I think certain school districts, they say we're going to have an hour's worth of public comment. Well, if you have 4 hours worth of public comment, that's our actual job, is to listen to the public. I've always felt that if someone took the time to come here to address us, and it's sometimes nerve-wracking, people are nervous to do it, that's what we definitely should be doing. And if there's 3 hours worth of public comment, that means the topic is really important. And then to make it any less, 3 minutes is, it seems like an eternity for some folks, and sometimes it seems to go by real fast. So,
Yep.
Okay.
I agree with Commissioner Campy.
I like the sound of that. Thank you.
So you know what to do. Find out what the other Board of County Commissioners are doing, and let's have this discussion again when we're armed with some facts.
That's what we'll do.
My home
Okay.
at the conference.
So Commissioner Campy, comments?
I'm all set, thank you.
Commissioner Heatherington,
I'm all set as well.
Mr. Donaldson.
I have two things. Well, first of all is, as Ms. Okie with our tourism, we've got a gold standard for our Leave No Trace, which I guess we're the first in the state of Florida to get that designation, which is, her continuation of numerous awards for that program. And then, and finally, and most importantly, you have Carolyn Breda won the Excellence Award for Risk Manager, Safety, and Human Resources, recognizing outstanding leadership in the claims process for injured workers. It's presented to individuals who positively impact the outcomes and ensure injured employees receive the best care and treatment. So that's one of our, Carolyn Braid has been with us a long time. She does a great job for us, and so if you see Carolyn, thank her for her great efforts and her award.
Would you explain Leave No Trace?
So the Leave No Trace is about, and it's a program about when you explore natural areas and the concept of leave only footprints. But it's more than that. It's about education, how you actually inform the residents. It provides it's not, and how we manage the land. It's a whole comprehensive program. I'll have Narissa and our ecotourism come and meet with you on it, because it's a significant program that we embarked upon, started a couple of years ago, and we cover all our habitats from the ocean and our estuarine world to our hiking in our natural lands, and so they have various programs on each one of those areas, and it also deals with those that have impairments and how they can get around and what kind of access we have for them. So it's really quite a comprehensive program, and the fact that we got the Gold Standard Award means that we just don't have one trail with one piece of information. It's a comprehensive program that also integrates with our hotels, and our local citizens participate.
Very nice. Ms. Woods.
As you know, last fall, we started our application for the Brightline grant agreement with the Federal Rail Administration. We sent out emails to all of the municipalities in Martin County for letters of support. It's one of the criteria that the grant will be graded on. We responded. We received letters of support from every municipality in Martin County with the exception of the city of Stuart. They failed to take any action one way or the other. It never even came to a vote. So because we have, as you all are probably aware, we have a 2023 interlocal agreement that where the city and the county agreed to each support each other in applying for grants. For the Brightline station, that agreement, that interlocal agreement, has not been rescinded or in any way modified. It still sits as a viable interlocal agreement. So pursuant to that, county staff sent out a letter on January 7th requesting for a letter of support from the city of Stuart in accordance with the requirements of the interlocal. My understanding from, I requested what occurred last night at the city of Stuart's meeting, and I heard back very thankfully from the city attorney, and was advised that the issue was died. There was never a vote. There was an attempt to get a vote on sending the letter, and that died. And then there was an attempt to even place it on the agenda, and that has died. Therefore, that ends the matter. They're not responding to us. So in accordance with Florida law, I'd like to bring a dispute resolution authorization agenda item. This is under Chapter 164. That's how local governments are supposed to resolve their differences. It's not suing them. It's a dispute resolution where we take various steps and try to come to consensus. And I'd like to bring an agenda item back at the next meeting. I believe it's the 28th. and I can outline what that is, and then I will also present a resolution for your consideration of whether you'd like to invoke that process. Do I have?
Questions?
Not that I can bring that back?
So you bring the resolution back, and then the dispute resolution goes forward. You just need us to
Yes,
agree on.
and what I will do, because I want to make sure everybody understands it, is the agenda item will outline step by step how the dispute resolution has gone. We've used it in the past with the city of Stewart.
So if you bring the dispute resolution forward, you have so many other municipalities that are in agreement that have submitted a letter of support for you to make application. It's our sister city. I mean, why would we continue if they're not, there's a lot of questions about it. We had the discussion about, we haven't finished our discussion. But, I would be more genial. I definitely would be more genial with City of Stewart. I mean, you can bring what you want forward in the next meeting. I'm not saying, Sarah, but,
Yes, ma'am.
do you know what I'm
Tried our
saying?
best. I don't know what else to do. They won't even
Okay.
consider it, or they haven't been able to even consider it. I have not watched the meeting. Again, I am not an advocate of disputes with our local governments. On the other hand, like with all of our agreements, I would at least like to ask them to honor their commitment, and I haven't been able to get a response. I will say from the standpoint of the effect on the grant, the City of Stewart is the most important letter of support because that's where the train station will be located, and that's where the greatest economic benefit will be placed. But beyond that, I respect your opinion, of course.
And we need to, if we're going to have this discussion, which we need to have this discussion, we need to advertise it so that the public says, sure, it was on the agenda, it was right there. It was.
Yeah, we
this-
want to give transparency. Yes, ma'am.
I'm all for it.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? We're adjourned.